I'm here to read This is the Place for your reading today on Thursday. So, as we get ready to read, remember we always start our reading with setting a purpose. So, I'm going to look at that reading, but I'm going to scroll down to these questions because those are the things that I'm going to be answering and I'm thinking about as I'm reading. So it says, gather evidence, underline the main reason that Rebecca and her family moved to Salt Lake Valley, add brackets around the hardships Rebecca and her family experienced on their journey west. So I'm looking for underlining that main reason that Rebecca and her family moved to Salt Lake Valley, and I'm bracketing or putting parentheses around the hardships that they experienced. So those are the big things that I'm looking for as I'm reading. I am going to go ahead and look at the questions too, so that way as I'm reading, I'm remembering what I'm looking for. It says, gather evidence, extend your ideas, review the text details you underlined and bracketed. What conclusion can you draw about how the family responds to challenges? So that goes back to those hardships that they're facing. Write 2 questions you would ask Rebecca about her experiences in Nauvoo. Ask questions, extend your ideas, list an additional question about Rebecca's life in Nauvoo that is answered in the text. Place a box around the answer in the text. So once again, I'm going back to that text for that question. Make your case. In what time period does this story take place? Circle clues in the text that relate to the time period. And then finally, make your case, extend your ideas. How does knowing the time period of the story help you better understand the events in it? Discuss your ideas with a partner. Obviously, we're not discussing with a partner, but if you feel like it, you could always hop on to office hours today with Ms. Backlon, or you can discuss with someone in your family. So let's go ahead. Remember, I am really looking for in this first reading, sorry about the background noise, my about why Rebecca and her family moved to Salt Lake Valley and the hardships they endured. Okay. This is the place. I can't believe that we finally made it, Father. What an arduous journey. Ooh, arduous, that's a good word. That means a really difficult journey. Very hard on her body with lots of, I would think, physical exercise. The mountains, the rivers, the buffalo herds, and the weather. I've had enough, exclaimed Rebecca. Indeed, Rebecca, we have endured many hardships, but seeing this great expanse of land and knowing that our pioneer brothers and sisters are here, I feel relieved. Rebecca and her family had traveled for months along with hundreds of other Mormons to the Salt Lake Valley. They had no idea that the first Mormon settlement in Nauvoo, Illinois, would not be permanent. Rebecca sighed and wrapped her arms around her twin sister. At least we are together, and no one perished. Ooh, perished means no one passed away or died. So I know that if they were worried about people dying on their journey, that was very difficult, right? She looked all around her and breathed in the clear, cleansing air. The land seemed so peaceful and safe, unlike Nauvoo. I just hope this valley does not bring the same circumstances. It was so unfair how people treated us there. Ooh, that sounds like a hardship. Unfair how people treated them there, Rebecca cried and abruptly sat down on a rock. We may always feel persecuted, Rebecca. You must understand that. Persecuted. That's a really good word. Persecuted means someone that has attacked them or wrongly judged somebody for something. This is why Brigham Young has led us west, far away from other settlements, so that we can worship freely and without human judgment. Oh, I'm looking at the main reason there. I'm going to read that paragraph again because I'm thinking about the main reason that they left and they went on that journey to the Salt Lake Valley. We may always feel persecuted or attacked, Rebecca. You must understand that. This is why Brigham Young has led us west, far away from other settlements, so that we can worship freely and without human judgment, explained her father. So that would be our reason why they left. I wonder how Mr. Young knew that this valley would be a safe haven for us, wondered Rebecca. She rose from the rock and squinted in the blazing sun. He is a wise man, a true follower of faith, and a fearless leader, Rebecca. When he arrived here, Young said, "This is the place, drive on," added her father. Rebecca replied, "I am thankful, Papa. that we have a new home and a place to practice our religion and way of life without being ridiculed. Ooh, ridiculed, that's another really good word. That means when people are constantly making fun of somebody or attacking them based on maybe like the way they dress or their religion or things like that. Yet I do miss our home back east. I yearn to see my friends in my school. Rebecca's father shook his head and approached Rebecca. I understand, but your school and your friends, families, all of them thought of you differently because you are Mormon. That's right, Papa, but it's just not fair. How could you, our countrymen who came to this land to seek religious freedom, practice such hypocrisy? Argued Rebecca. Rebecca stomped away, kicking dirt with her tattered boots to release some aggression. She sat down on the back of the wagon to gather her thoughts. Her father pushed a wooden chest out of the way and sat next to her. He wiped Rebecca's hair away from her weary face and prayed. Okay, so let's go back down to these questions. So I gave you the main reason, and I talked about some of the hardships throughout the way, or throughout the article as I read it. So those are things that you should be doing: is underlining the main reason and putting brackets around some of the hardships you noticed that Rebecca and her family experienced on their journey. Okay, so this first question says, gather your evidence, extend your ideas, review the text details you underlined and bracketed. What conclusion can you draw about how the family responds to challenges? So some of the things that I noticed, that the reason that they left was that they wanted to worship freely and without human judgment, right? And some of the hardships that I noticed that they had was that they had to leave their home due to ridicule and to because of how people were treating them. I also noticed up here that she said it was an arduous journey. I think of arduous as being very difficult, very taxing on your body. They had to go over mountains, rivers, they passed buffalo herds, the weather. I'm assuming based on what she said, I've had enough that it was not an easy journey. They went across a great expanse of land, so they traveled really far. I also noticed that they said they went from Indiana to Utah, so that's quite a big difference in place that they moved. It says we may always feel persecuted. You must understand that. That's why they went west. Persecuted, remember we talked about where people judged them or treated them differently, and sometimes badly because of something like their religion in this case. So those are some things that we can be talking about as far as those hardships that they faced, and what I want you to now think about: what conclusion can you draw or what inference can you make? So we have the text evidence there that you should have bracketed, and now you should be thinking about what inference can you make about her family based on that. We know that they left because they wanted to worship freely. They have endured a lot of hardships, and we named some of those. So what can you gather about her family? This next question is something you're going to have to do on your own. Write 2 questions you would ask Rebecca about her experiences in Nauvoo. Remember, Nauvoo was back in her previous home where she was ridiculed and persecuted based on her religion. So I want you to be thinking about that. I also noticed that at one point she said she misses her friends there, but her dad says they didn't treat her the same because of her religion. So I want you to be thinking about things like that. Next, we have extend your ideas. List an additional question about Rebecca's life in Nauvoo that is answered in the text. Place a box around the answer in the text. So I'm going to go back up here and find the area about her life in Nauvoo. It says in this third to last paragraph, Rebecca replied, I am thankful, Papa, that we have a new home and a place to practice our religion and way of life without being ridiculed. Yet I do miss our home back east. I yearn to see my friends and my school. Rebecca's father shook his head and approached. Rebecca, I understand, but your school and your friends' families all thought of you differently because you are Mormon, which is her religion. So finding something that you could ask and then answer in those 2 Paragraphs would be a great place to be looking for answers there. And remember, you need to box that answer in. Um, Make your case. In what time period do you think this story takes place? Circle clues in the text that relate to the time period. So when I'm thinking about what the time period is, I'm noticing that they are traveling an arduous journey over mountains, rivers, and buffalo herds. I've had enough. Um, in today's Midwest, where there are not very many buffalo herds left. And that's because they were killed off long ago. Some other things that I noticed down at the bottom, it says, Rebecca stomped away, kicking dirt with her tattered boots to release some aggression. She sat down on the back of the wagon to gather her thoughts. How do we travel today? I would say it's safe to assume none of us travel by wagon. So her father pushed a wooden chest out of the way and sat next to her. He wiped Rebecca's hair from her weary face and prayed. So they traveled a long, arduous, or difficult journey, and they traveled in a wagon. So that tells me some big things about where or when this took place. This would be the time of probably like the Oregon Trail, or when people were moving west in the 1800s would be my guess. How does knowing the time period of the story help you better understand the events? Discuss your ideas with a partner. Knowing the time period to me helps me understand that things are not the same as they are today. Number one, she had to leave her friends. Today, if I leave my friends, I've moved all over the country, and I have friends in many, many different states, and I can still stay in contact with them fairly easily. I can stay in contact with them through email or phone or social media or anything like that, and I could even hop on a plane and visit them if I wanted to. And so because of that, I'm thinking that Rebecca might have a difficult time with this because she doesn't have the easy access to communicate with her friends. I also think that the ability to travel was much more difficult at that time. Having to travel across the country, I've done that in car and I've done that in an airplane. I have never done that in a covered wagon. And I think that would be very, very difficult for somebody to do. It would take many months, and they would have to endure a lot of physical hardships during that time. So those are some just ways that I might help me empathize or understand Rebecca and her troubles more. Right, if you have any questions, feel free to get on office hours or ask your teacher. Thanks, guys.